to become conscious in this moment, tuning into the heart center, expanding our awareness of the breath and how the breath centers and calms this body being called me. Drawing in a conscious inhale, raising the crown of the head high, and a conscious exhale, lowering the shoulders and releasing any body tension. We become fully present to this moment right here and right now. Life has no opposite, no beginning, no end. As I breathe into this space, I rest in the consciousness of eternal life. This life that does not worry, does not waver. This life that is grounded, rooted, centered, expansive. May the power of this expansive life have its way within my being, expand in and through and as me, such that small thoughts, ideas of chaos and concern, turmoil and tribulation melt from my creative mind back into pure substance. With each inhale and each exhale, my divine purpose is magnified and multiplied as I am tethered to my soul's purpose, tethered to principle, tethered to this quiet space within. And I allow my vision to transform from this consciousness. There is one life. It is God life. It is this life right here and right now. It is my life. It is the life I see around me, the life I feel within me. As I hold fast to this truth, I allow my perceptions and my perspectives to shift even in an instant, so that I may be of service to the greater good, that I may wake up in each moment and arrive clear, conscious, intentional, honoring the creative process, honoring this life that is having its way in me, through me, and as me. I stand strong in my practice, and my ability to come back to this practice in any waking moment is quickened right here and right now. I am secure in this truth. I am home. I am. And so it is.
Well, hello everyone. I'm delighted to be here to have a chance to share with you. Friends, brothers, and sisters, I love you. I can't help it. I believe the title of my talk is Living the Laws of Spirit. Of course, I never let the title of a talk interfere with what I actually have to share with you, but I will wander around that topic. One thing that's important about spiritual or universal or natural law is that it builds a bridge between the two worlds in which we live, day to day. We spend most of our time in the conventional world dealing with health issues, relationships, finances, career or retirement, and all the challenges of everyday life and all the joys here on earth. But there is also a realm that we yearn for that brings us to places like unity, that brings people all over the world to practice spiritual connection and communion. And that is the transcendental world. That is a deep yearning within the heart of every human being. No matter how worldly or successful someone may be, there's always that sense there's got to be something more than news, weather, and sports. So I'd like to say a few things about the conventional and transcendental world, because that is the spiritual laws are the bridge between the two. And they help us understand the statement that we're here to live with our head in the clouds, but our feet on the ground, with a peaceful heart, but also with a warrior spirit in everyday life. So let me begin by describing a kind of difference. When we live in the conventional world, we have to deal with the details of everyday life and function. It's as if we're lying on the ground beneath a great mountain, and we're looking in the grasses and the weeds, and we're examining very closely the details of things that are crawling there, the little bugs and spiders, and we're examining them. And that's important, it's part of life. But what if we suddenly found ourselves standing atop the mountain and looking at this vast panorama and how beautiful it is? Because everything appears more beautiful in the distance. Have you noticed that? So the ability to go from the conventional into the transcendental through spiritual practices, prayer, meditation, whatever we use to make that connection is a primary spiritual talent or ability. So at the same time as we do function and treat everything that comes up in our lives as important, the ability to step back and rise above it and look at life from the bigger picture of life unfolding as it will perfectly. This is something I've found profoundly useful. And spiritual law allows us that connection. Now, you may be asking, some of you might be asking, well, what is spiritual law? I hear the term a lot, and we see these laws, we read about them. How is it different from a principle or a theory or a belief? And to explain that, I need to say, when I was a little boy, I was pretty disoriented. I looked around at the world and I said, what is this place? It seems pretty mysterious. How does it work? What are the rules here? And I asked some people I knew, called parents, and they sort of knew and sort of didn't. And I sought out wisdom elsewhere, and I began collecting quotations. And, quotations have power. Let me give you an example. Mark Twain once said, I've had many troubles in my life, most of which never happened. It's a good reminder, isn't it? So quotes have power, and I began to collect them to find some wisdom for life, how I could live, what would guide me. And one of the first quotes I came across was from Benjamin Franklin. And he said, a penny saved is a penny earned. Now I said, that must be true. It sounded true, it sounded real. But then I came across another quotation that seemed to contradict it. It said, nothing ventured or risked, nothing gained. And then I heard, he or she who hesitates is lost. Oh, but look before you leap. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you're never too old to learn. Birds of a feather flock together, but opposites attract. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Oh, but out of sight, out of mind. So I was getting more confused than ever. What could I count on? What was true and real? And then I came across a quotation that I'd heard many times before, so have you. And it goes like this: a chain breaks at its weakest link. Now, by this time, I was jaded. I was going, yeah, maybe so, but, I couldn't find anything to contradict that. And in fact, one day I broke 10,000 chains. And you know what? Every single one of those chains broke where? At its weakest link. It was the first time I came across not just a quote or an aphorism, but a spiritual law. You can break 100,000 chains, same thing's going to happen. And so the first quality that makes something a law rather than a principle or an idea is you can count on it every time. It's as real as the law of gravity working through the physical domain, a spiritual law. And it's important to know that a chain breaks at its weakest link if you happen to be in the hardware business. But it's also important for all of us to appreciate, because we also break at our weak link, don't we? Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, social, financial, sexual, whatever that weak link is, that's where we can break. And in fact, everything in the known universe, at the subatomic, atomic, chemical level, molecular level, everything breaks at its weakest link. I know this because I've checked. So the second quality that makes something a spiritual law, not only can we count on it, but it's universal. It applies across every domain. It applies to our relationships, to our finances, to our careers. It guides us through life. There are an infinite number of spiritual laws. They describe the shape of waves breaking on the beach, or the way flowers turn toward the sun. But there are certain laws, certain essential reminders that can help guide our lives. We can align ourselves with these laws. We can live according to spiritual law. And that is going to help us connect the conventional and the transcendent. It's a reminder, a profound reminder. The laws come from above, but they're for us to align ourselves with. So let me say a little bit more about these two worlds in which we live, because each of them has its own truths. And it helps us to avoid a great deal of confusion in our lives. Because we hear a lot of things. Maybe we believe them, maybe we don't. But let's start with something very simple and homely. We're in a garden and we see a spider. A little spider crawling on its web. And what if I were to say and make the statement that that spider is a vicious, merciless, bloodthirsty killer? You might disagree with that, unless I added the words from the viewpoint of a fly. Oh, and then, yeah, maybe so. From the viewpoint of a fly, that might be true. But from your viewpoint or mine, most little spiders are harmless, delicate, aesthetic, fragile little web spinners. So which is true? Which is true about spiders? Are they bloodthirsty, vicious killers, or are they harmless, fragile little web spinners? Both are true, but it depends on what viewpoint you're coming from. If you're looking from the view of a fly, one is true. If you're looking from the viewpoint of a human being. Now, some of us don't like the way spiders run, but keep in mind, they're running from us. We're a lot bigger. In any case, you can see how both those statements are true depending on where we're coming from, our state of mind. Fly, human. Well, let's look at another statement. You've all heard the saying, we are all one. What a beautiful idea to contemplate. We are all one. Is it true from the conventional level? Absolutely not. If I stub my toe and I'm jumping up and down in discomfort, it doesn't hurt you unless you're highly empathic. If I have a particular emotion or thought, you don't necessarily have the same one at the same time. So we can say, conventionally speaking, it's true that we're separate, individuated beings responsible for our lives and our choices. But from a transcendental view, from the view of who we truly are, the consciousness, animating everyone, shining through all these billions of eyes, all this interesting gift wrapping. From that perspective, we couldn't be anything but one. One consciousness, one spirit. So both of those statements are true. We are separate, we are one, depending on where your state of awareness is. How about the idea that, how many of you have heard this saying, there are no accidents? I was giving you a chance to keep the blood circulating. If you can raise your hand, good, okay. Sure, we've heard that. Is it true? Well, I can tell you, I've spilled things, knocked things over. Some of you saw me do it on Friday night. I was moving my arm and knocked over a little vase. So I've spilled water or milk, not paying attention, bumped into things. So accidents, conventionally speaking, do happen. But of course, from a transcendental view, impossible. No accidents, only lessons. Perfect. How about the idea there is no death? Well, I was with my father just before he died and a few minutes after. When we were called by where he was staying, we went to visit him. It was close by. And he was non-responsive. He was very quiet. His breathing was labored. And I whispered in his ear, told him I loved him, because I know he could hear me. And I spoke with him a little while, gave him a kiss, and sat with him. But the people who were taking care of him said, we don't know how long this will be. It could be all night. We don't know. But we recommend you go home. You're close by. And we'll call you if there's any change. So as soon as we walked in the door, the phone rang. And they said he just took his last breath. And Joy and I went back very quickly. And we sat with him. And it was this husk, like a husk of corn. It was so clear. Something had flown. And I looked at him when he was alive, when he was gone. Very clearly, death was real. And we naturally grieve those who will no longer see in the flesh. So no one can tell me from a conventional view that death isn't real. The body dissolves, changes. And yet, from a transcendental view, that consciousness again, that we are, it was never born and never dies. It just changes. So death is real and death is an illusion. Again, we hear those things, but now we understand. On one level, it's true. On another level, another truth operates. And spiritual law connects those two levels. For example, the law of surrender. It's been called the first law of spirit, about surrendering to the moment, surrendering to life as it flows, and making use of whatever happens. It's a very powerful law, and I'd like to read you a very short epigraph, a quotation. One of my books is called The Journeys of Socrates, about my old mentor and the life that he lived, a very challenging life. And at the end of that book, I write that I found something from him, and maybe it reflects in some sense your life and your wisdom. He said, when I was young, I believed that life might unfold in an orderly way according to my hopes and expectations. But now I understand that the way winds like a river, always changing, ever onward, following God's gravity toward the great sea of being. My journeys revealed that the way itself creates the warrior, and that every path ultimately leads to peace, and every choice to wisdom, and that life has always been and will always be arising in mystery. So that's one statement about the law of surrender. Life comes at us in waves of change, doesn't it? And we can't predict or control those waves, but we can learn to surf. We can learn, like a good martial artist, to use what force comes at us roll up our sleeves and get out of the way and make use of it and channel it the way a water wheel channels the river. We stop swimming upstream, fighting the current in our life and trying to make things happen and playing God, assuming we know what should happen and what we should be and others should be and do. And we start to accept more and more. This is a primal spiritual talent, an ability we can develop. And it's one of 12 laws I describe in my little book, The Laws of Spirit. And I think, in terms of speaking, there are laws of speaking as well. There are 3 laws about speaking. Maybe you've heard this, of course you have. Be clear, be brief, and be seated. So I am going to follow those laws, but before I do, I'd like to share with you something from the end of the little book, The Laws of Spirit. An ageless woman sage teaches me these laws up in the mountains through direct experience. And when she's about to say goodbye, she offers these words, which are heartfelt words I also share with you. These are my wishes and prayers for you all the days of your life. May you find grace as you surrender to life. May you find happiness as you stop seeking it. The challenges of daily life will remain, she said, and you'll tend to forget what I've shown you. But when you remember, life's problems will seem no more substantial than soap bubbles. The path will open before you where before there grew only weeds of confusion. Your future and the future of all humanity is a path into the light, into a growing realization of your unity with the Creator and all creation. And what lies beyond is beyond description. Even when the sky appears at its darkest, know that the sun shines ever upon you, that love surrounds you, and that the pure light within you will guide your way home. So trust the process of your life unfolding, and know with certainty through the peaks and valleys of your life that your soul rests safe in the embrace of Spirit. Thank you so much. Thank you.